but also Ukraine with Cormac Smith. He's a former advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry and joins us now. Good morning to you, Cormac.
Julia, good morning.
Always good to get you. Lovely to get you on the show. Now, of course, a lot of world attention has gone, about Donald Trump a lot lately. We've been talking a lot about what's going on in the Middle East. Less focus on Ukraine, but there's been this full-on push from Ukraine, desperate to get access to these long-range missiles to fire into Russian territory, attack supply lines, defend their position in Kursk, and all of that. And when we finally had that announcement from Joe Biden yesterday about actually America would give permission, that would pave the way for Britain and France to give their long-range missiles to be used in Ukraine on Russian territory too. What is the significance of the Biden decision, and what's the significance of the timing as well?
Well, Julia, look, I have been saying for some time that this decision would not come until after the elections.
Yeah.
I think that Joe Biden was afraid of damaging the Democratic chances in those elections. That's all now gone.
Yeah.
Better late than never is what I would say. But, this permission should have been given, and these long-range weapons, and from the Americans in particular, the ATACMS, should have been provided years ago. It would have literally saved tens of thousands of innocent Ukrainian lives. So while I welcome it, I do say that it should have been done far earlier. It is significant, and we don't know what's going to happen with Donald Trump, although I have said that there could be a silver lining in Ukraine with Donald Trump, as it might make European leaders finally wake up. Yep. And realise that Europe has to stand on our own two feet.
Yeah, I mean, one thing Donald Trump has always been right about is European leaders, shouldn't rely on American taxpayers to fund their security. Is there also an element where, again, this push for Joe Biden to allow all these big loans, tens of billions in loans, actually a lot of it simply from funding package from frozen Russian assets abroad, getting to Ukraine before Donald Trump comes in, because there's this fear that Donald Trump says, I'm going to insist that we have peace on day one. Now, that involves both sides coming to the party and coming to the table, doesn't it? But I wonder whether Donald Trump will be quite as keen on that once he gets into office.
Well, Donald Trump is famously unpredictable. And I have said recently that, the last time Donald Trump met Vladimir Putin was flying high, and Donald Trump was possibly at his lowest nadir ever. It was 2019, and he was going through impeachment.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has never been more powerful in his life, and he has at his fingertips the world's most powerful military. America spends as much as the next 10 nations combined in military might. So there is no doubt that America has the ability, if it so wishes, to end this war, and to end this war in Ukraine's favor. I do not believe that is going to be achieved at the negotiating table. No. Because Putin negotiates in bad faith and always breaks his word on anything to do with Ukraine. Yeah. And, Peskov, Putin's spokesman in the Kremlin, has just come out and said that a freezing of the current lines is out of the question. So the Russians are talking very, very aggressively on this. Putin will only stop when he has stopped.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Look, I mean, the statement from, as you mentioned, from the Kremlin says this would in a significant way change the very nature of the conflict. It would mean that NATO countries are at war with Russia. Now, we're constantly told we can't upgrade this war. Donald Trump Jr., one of Donald Trump's sons, has said this is almost like, Joe Biden trying to start World War III before the new president comes in, who has a mandate to end that war from the American people, which I believe is the case. But, a lot of people say wars end at the negotiating table. Well, I mean, they don't. Wars end with someone willing, and then you go to the table afterwards, surely.
Look, Julia, the Second World War didn't end at the negotiating table, and it never could. It was only going to end when the greatest evil that the world had thus far seen was stopped. And I apply the exact same standards to Vladimir Putin. I think we can take with a pinch of salt anything that Don Jr. says, because I'm sure he has said it with the full agreement of his father, but his father is a disruptor, and his father we can only guess on what his father's real intentions are.
Yeah.
As much as, there's probably only one thing I've ever agreed with Donald Trump on, and that's that European members of NATO needed to pay more.
Yeah.
And indeed, even though the UK has been, ahead of the pack and the greatest supporter of Ukraine in the last 2 or 3 years, we need to spend more on defence.
Yeah.
We're up to, I believe, 2.3, but the Labour government is really delaying on that original.
Well, but also even delaying, 2.5. I mean, sorry, 2.5 doesn't touch the sides of the predicament that we are in the West. We are going to have to spend a lot more than that, and whether we like it or not, we're going to have to do that. Can I ask you just finally about China, because I know you look at world affairs, across the board. It is interesting, Putin is completely out in the cold as a murderous, dictator. But Keir Starmer, the G20 summit in Brazil, will be rolling out the red carpet, having a one-on-one with Xi Jinping, also a murderous, tyrannical dictator who poses a threat to the world and to our allies like Taiwan and the Uyghur people, the Hong Kong people, who sanctioned British MPs, delivered a COVID pandemic to the world. Still waiting for my reparations for that. Should we be, for want of a better phrase, cozying up to Xi Jinping, or is that just, frankly, an economic necessity?
I don't think we should be cozying up to Xi Jinping, but I do think it's correct that the Prime Minister talks to him. But if I could be so bold as to offer, as a former advisor to Ukraine's Foreign Minister, if I could offer some advice to Keir Starmer, it would be this: if you shake hands with China, count your fingers afterwards.
Good advice.
China is at the heart of an axis of evil, China, Russia, Iran and North Korea, who are bent on the destruction of our rules-based order and our way of life. And that rules-based order may be imperfect, but if it stands for one thing, it is that you cannot simply invade a neighbor and rape, plunder, pillage and murder just to take what you want.
Absolutely. Cormac Smith, always so good to talk to you, sir. Former advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. Thank you for that. Claire Pistol.